Welcome to the Soul Seed podcast, where soul meets strategy. Every week, I, your host, Sabrina Greer, have activated conversations with multi-passionate, soul-led thought leaders about their journey of growth from seed to soul's purpose. Every successful book, brand, business, podcast, product, or program starts as a seed, an idea planted into the soul of its creator. Be inspired by those who've led before us, 6, 7, 8-figure entrepreneurs, best-selling authors, top-rated podcasters, and multifaceted humans. Be empowered by their humble beginnings and expanded by their tenacity and spirit. Join us in the frequency of abundance as we go to the story roots of these powerhouses. Learn how to apply and leverage the Soul Seed method in the creation of your very own legacy. Let's go. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Soul Seed, the podcast. I am super excited for our guest today. First-time author, Nicole Gallucci. I'm so excited to have you here, Nicole. We've got a CEO, agency founder, and professor. Nicole has created the life blueprint process due to challenges in her own life. Though there are lots of resources all around us, there was not an end-to-end, all-encompassing methodology for optimizing and managing life. These exist for business, but we're lacking for our personal lives. She leaned into the proven methods and disciplines that made her a successful CEO, added teachings from the world's best coaches, leaders, and authors, and engineered a process for life. And guess what? It works. She has shared the life blueprint process to thousands of people. And not only are those who have followed her proprietary process achieving their goals and dreams, they are doing it faster, happier, and healthier due to her innovative and fully integrated model. And now you can get it in a book form. So excited. Nicole, welcome. I know it's been a process to get this book baby born into the world, and it's here, and I'm sure that comes with a mix of emotions. What I would love is to learn a little bit about you that, we always call it the non-bio version of yourself, because we know behind every well-written bio, there's a real person in there. So tell us a little bit about yourself, the real you.
Yeah, the real me. The real me is crazy, Sabrina. So I'm not even sure how far I should go there. I think, you know what? The real me is a mom at heart. And I feel like that's who I am through and through. And that's who I always wanted to be. And that's how I so often describe myself. A lot of my actual team still refers to me as Mama G. And so I think I lean into that moniker in a lot of different ways. And it shows in our life, in everything that we do. And I think that was probably a big catalyst, to be honest, for the book, because I had my own little crash and burn, and I've had many crash and burns, but I've also had many amazing opportunities come my way. And you know what? Both of them throw you off track because you're on a trajectory. And whether it's a huge challenge that is, life altering, or an amazing opportunity that is equally life altering, you are having to figure out which way you want to go and how you want to adjust and how you want to navigate. And, obviously you look to mentors and peers and coaches and books and everything. And it just wasn't there. Like the answers just weren't there. And everybody, of course, has their own little piece of the puzzle, but it's like, how do you pull this all together? And I looked at, when you look at business, which is where all of us, that's all of our roots at the end of the day. That's how we pay our bills. There's a methodology for everything. We have long-term plans, we have short-term plans, we have monthly reviews, weekly check-ins, data reports that are coming in all the time. We don't seem to apply any of that to our personal life. And that's a good thing in some ways, but in other ways, we do need some kind of map or blueprint. And so that's where all this has come from. It's honestly come from my roots as a mom and wanting to be the best mom possible. And then that obviously has led into wanting to be the best leader, wanting to be the best person and contributor to the world at large, to be honest.
I love that. And it's so true. I've worked with dozens, maybe more, mentors, coaches, people, experts, all these titles and names, but at the end of the day, it boils down to life. It can all be part, we have to show up as the best version of ourselves to succeed in anything outside of ourselves. So business, parenting, being a homestead or whatever you're doing, whatever thing you're doing outside of just being a person and walking around with, this heartbeat and feet that we're moving around this earth with, to do anything outside of that, you have to show up as the best version of yourself. And you're right, there isn't really, well, until now, of course, a blueprint, a model, a instruction manual to do so. Right. So I love the work that you're doing. I think it's so important because I truly believe that it starts with us, and then we can develop things on top of that. We can layer things on top of this person, our best self, our highest self, and bring all of those beautiful things into the world. And so I just love the work that you're doing. Can you tell us a little bit more about the work that you do? Obviously, the book, and
Sure.
I know you're a coach, but I'd love to hear more about like what the modality is and the work that you do and sort of your fundamentals.
Yeah. And I think it's so funny. So my fundamentals honestly started off as consumer packaged goods and then leading an agency. And I shifted from one to the other. But I think the key word there is leading. And I think it's, incumbent upon us as we go through the different phases of our life to share with the next in line so that we can make their path a little bit easier. And so I've morphed through my roles. So obviously consumer packaged goods at Nestle and Coke, and I managed a joint venture, which I love doing. And in that particular case, I was actually working with people who were much older and apparently much wiser, and trying to bring those two institutions together. And that was super challenging. And again, we leaned into process. And so then I worked for a holding company and did a startup. And again, you're literally going from zero to a huge staff, lots of money and opportunities on the table. And that's where I found the flip side of in an organization, you manage for growth as much as you manage for downside. And we actually found that we had won a client, and in winning the client, it was a multi-million-dollar client, and that nearly killed us. And yet it was such a huge opportunity. But that was where, we had that learning of, wow, like even amazing things can really cause that fork in the road. And so as a result of all of that, I sort of morphed into, guest speaking at the different colleges and universities, and falling in love with that, and falling in love with helping the next gen in my competency, which has really become very much in the agency world. And when you're doing that, you start to mentor and coach not only about work, but about life. And the two are so connected. We can't disconnect our personal life from our professional life. They're completely intertwined. It's how we define ourselves every day, how we measure ourselves, even if it's just against ourselves. Forget about the rest of the world. And so many students were trying to figure out, who they want to be when they grow up. And I was like, yeah, me too. So how do you do that? And in those conversations, that's what led to me sharing what I was working on, and then actually taking the students through my model. And I actually found that it was starting to help them. And so from that, I started to actually work with their families, because they'd be saying, well, you did this with me. Could you do this with my mom? Could you do this with my sister? And so then I started doing this, literally running workshops live and, prior to Zoom, over different, like over the phone and everything. We'd be going through it because we'd have people in different countries. I've had, students who are international students here, and I'm coaching and helping their parents or their family members in India because they want to go through the process. So it literally started to mushroom, so to speak, as a result of people needing answers for themselves. And, the answers are inside of us. Everything that we need to know, it's inside of us, but we have to work through it. And so there wasn't something that I found that allowed us to work through it until I started to work through the process myself. And then the more I shared it, the more robust it became. And then obviously it's morphed into me using it as part of my coaching practice. So it's been an evolution, not a revolution. I still have my foot or my feet in lots of different worlds. As you know, I still have my own agency. I'm a prof at 2 different schools. And I invest in real estate, and I have my own Airbnb. So I do all the things. And even in doing all the things, it's, how do you manage all those things and the work that you do so you feel fulfilled? And I will honestly say my greatest fulfillment comes from helping people figure out what it is that they want to do and be, and then create that action plan. And then they start doing and being it. And they're so happy and they're so fulfilled. And so that for me has been, I think the greatest reward in this process is that you see people who go through the life blueprint process and then they come back to me and they're like, oh my God, I got to tell you, this just happened. And that goal that I thought I wasn't going to achieve for 3 or 4 years, I achieved it in the past year. Because when we start to do all of our goals and our dreams and we talk about them, they just feel so overwhelming. And then when you connect all the dots to all the areas of your life and create the action plan, you actually see, oh my God, I can make this happen. So I've morphed from that consumer package kid to doing this because I think it's in you and you have the processes refined as you go through your own career. But I do think as you have more experiences life and get more of that gray hair that I try to really hide well, that you can now see that there's ways that we can make life easier for ourselves and for those around us. And that is the greatest fulfillment of all. I think when you're growing up, it is shared by many mentors that in serving, we are the most fulfilled in life. And it's hard to grasp exactly how you're going to serve. And this is my service. I have to be honest, this has become my vocation to get the model out there to as many people and in as many hands as possible.
Well, and I can't think of a better way to do that than by publishing a book.
Right.
So here we are.
Here we are.
I know the process is not easy. I've worked with hundreds of authors, and all experiences are different. There's no one size fits all model to this whole journey where we're dealing with different personalities and different styles of learning. And as a prof, I'm sure you completely understand that. So tell us a bit about the process, the journey, the good, the bad, and the ugly, of course, and just sort of like, how does it feel now that it's done, now that it's there?
So that's such a good question. I would say there's a huge sigh of relief, anxiety, pride, and okay, now what am I going to do with this? And I've got it now. And so, I think part of we all have an inferiority complex, or I think many of us do, and imposter syndrome. So I think that is definitely part of it. And so finding the right partners through this process was critical for me. And I think that's why we ended up together. I think, I do believe that everything happens for a reason. And the book writing process, I thought it was all done. I wrote the book, here we are, and I'm going to serve it up to you. And then it's very interesting because then you go through the process and through the rigor and you realize, no, there's definitely some work that needs to be done. And then as other people start to weigh into it, there's highs and lows in this. And so because it's your vulnerable work that you're pouring into the pages, and when it has now gotten to a place that you can see that you can impact lives, but in order to do this, you have to do it properly. It becomes a lot of pressure to do it properly. And what does that mean? And how do you define that? And so on the one hand, you have a very supporting publishing team, very supportive. Got to say that honestly, because for anybody out there listening to this, admittedly I'm not going to say the 11th hour, but probably the 9.5, almost 10th hour, I literally, had a little bit of a crash and burn. And it was because I panicked. I literally had an anxiety attack over, is this good enough? Have I said the right things? I've leaned into some of my own personal challenges, and have I said too much? Have I said too little? How is this going to impact those in my intimate circle? Am I sharing this in a way that there's going to be good learnings for those who are reading this, and that it's going to engage them? Because I want the credibility of everyone understanding I have definitely been through some significant highs and significant lows. And so how do you share that with the objective being, this is the process? And so all of this is going in your mind, and you are putting your heart out there. And, none of us want to fail. None of us do all this work and spend all this time and energy to fail. And at the same time, we're on a huge learning curve. So I think that, obviously you and I were meant to meet for a reason. I had talked to other publishers and I found it gut-wrenching. There were some the significant highs and the significant lows, and how do you balance off being an entrepreneur and having someone weigh in on your work, and then doing this, and I'm a marketing person, but I'm not a book marketing person, and I write all the time, but I'm not a published author with, a bestseller list. You are. So it's managing all of these things that you want to do and putting your foot out there and just starting and having somebody to hold your hand that is patient. And I think that was the key for you and I and your team, was that and full transparency to everybody out there, I did crash and burn, and it was okay. It was actually okay. So I didn't get penalized for it. There was a, team that came around me and said, okay, we're going to help you get to the other side of this crash and burn. And in the end, I think we've gotten to a better place. But I don't think I would have gotten to that better place if I hadn't been so supported in the process. Because I think in other circumstances, there could have been tension, and there was love. And that was greatly appreciated.
Oh, I love you saying that, and I swear, everyone listening, I did not pay her to say that.
No. It does not work that way at all. And obviously, we're both doing this on a voluntary basis. I mean, we entered into this as partners in crime. So, and I think we're going to come out of this as partners in crime, and not at all.
Yeah. No, and I love that. And I think that's why people do call me like a book doula, and compare the process so much to, like, looping back to the whole motherhood and parenting piece. The comparison is strong. It really is like birthing something. Like, it's coming no matter what. How prepared do you want to be? How much support do you want in your corner? Like, it's all happening. And we can choose to lean into the support and the beauty of this whole process, or we can just totally go crazy with it and just like go internal and not ask for help. And so I really appreciate you saying that, because I do believe, whether it's my team or another team or whoever you have, make sure, if you are putting anything out in the world, your work in any way, whether it's a book or a podcast or a business or a brand or whatever it is that you're birthing into the world, make sure you have a solid support team, because it can go one of two ways. And the statistics are appalling that 88% of the human population desire to write and publish their work and put a book out in the world, and 3% write books, and out of the 3%, only less than 1% actually get to the point of publication. And I think it really boils down to lack of support, to not having people in your corner, and not because it takes a lot of vulnerability, it takes a lot of courage, it takes a lot of confidence, and those aren't skills that people are just born with. And like you said, you could be a marketing professional, you could be a celebrity, you could be even an editor or a writer, and not have the specific skill set it takes to do the thing, right? I have one quote from a mentor of mine in the past, and they're like, would you ever hire a plumber to design your website? The answer is no. Don't ask for help in areas that are not the expertise of the people that you're asking for help from. And I think that happens so often when we lean on our family or our peers or our colleagues for support, because they're the people closest to us. And I love that whole analogy of, like, we really need to seek support in whatever it is that we're putting out there. Business coaches help with businesses, 100%. Publishers and publishing teams help with birthing books, and people like yourself help with life, right? So having the right support system in place for the right skills you're trying to develop, or the right things you're trying to build and learn upon, is so key. So I'm so glad that is a good segue back to the book. And I'm just so glad that you published this book, because I think so many people actually need help with this area, with life, with figuring out what they want to be when they grow up, with figuring out who
We
they
all
are
we all need that.
now. Yeah. And I don't believe there's a lot of tools out there to help with that specific piece. So thank you for the work that you're doing. Thank you for, trusting us. Thank you for publishing this beautiful masterpiece and putting it out into the world and being vulnerable and being courageous and all of the things. If you were to leave our listeners with one last piece of advice, gold nugget, thing that you want to impart on the world, one thing, what would that be?
I'm going to lean into your analogy, and I think you've used the word birthing many times today. And when we get pregnant, all of a sudden we are very elated and excited, and then we go, oh my gosh, because once you're pregnant, and here we go. And it's everybody says 9 months. It's actually 40 weeks, which is 10 months, guys. So hate to tell you. So, and now we're going along, and every once in a while you go, oh my gosh, but you're in it. So your oh my goshes are, I'm in it, and I've got to stick to that deadline's coming, whether I'm having anxiety or not. And so you end up embracing the deadline, and there is a huge blessing and win at the end of it, but there's a mixture of emotions leading up to it. And I think that that's true with so many things in our life. But if we look at it, as a parallel to that process, in that particular case, we don't have an out. We're in it. Like, it's too late. We made the decision. We're in it. We're committed. So here we go. And I think in life, sometimes we back away and we think it's okay. You know what? I can change my mind. I can pull out. I can have the anxiety. I'm not going to launch. I'm not going to start that podcast or write that book or start that business, because we lose confidence for a myriad of reasons. And I think at some point we have to put the stake in the ground, determine the date, time, and place, and make it happen. And yes, there's going to be, challenges along the way. But I think if we have a process that helps get us to the other side, and we stay committed, that we can actually do that without needing a crazy infrastructure of support. We're always going to need a support structure. That goes without saying, but we have to commit and be accountable to ourselves. And my hope is that the process gives us that, and it brings everything from the world of overwhelm to the world of tangible and actionable. And so I think your birthing analogy is a good one at this particular point in time. And I wish that for everyone. Just start. And this book, hopefully, and this process helps you start. And I can tell you it works, because I'm teaching it to CEOs and presidents of organizations, and taking them through it. And I'm teaching it to students as they're coming through, and we're working through the process. It works. You can have the life you want. Just got to commit to it, and then put the steps in play.
So powerful. All goosebumpy over here. I love it. I love it. So what's next for Nicole, and where can our people find you when they're tuning in?
So that's great. So I am always alive and well at NicoleGallucci.com. And I'd say it's a great place to begin, because that connects you to everything that is happening in my world. And obviously, I hope that people will lean into the Life Blueprint process. And there's more coming, even with you and I, as we evolve this process into other ways. There's live workshops coming. There's obviously the online course. I think the book is a great place for people to start. And if you need a guiding hand as you're going through the book, then do not hesitate to reach out. I'm happy to be that guiding hand. But I would say NicoleGallucci.com is the best place to start.
Amazing. And we'll link everything in the show notes. Thank you, Nicole, so much for being here. Thank you for all of your hard work and vulnerability and everything that you do. And thank you, listeners, for tuning in.
Thank you, everybody.